Learners. Today we will be covering MMPS 009 International Human Resource Management Block 4. That is issues and challenges in international human resource management. We'll cover the Unit 12 and Unit 13, that is International Employee Relations. One issue and challenges will cover this. And second is all about the trends and challenges which is happening on international level, on the global level. Let's see first about the international employee relations. When we talk about the international, another word is globalization, which make the regulatory compliance crucial for managing local and international workforce. So the IR policies, the international relationship policies, are influenced by two main things. One is government policies, and second is trade union attitudes. Because here the trade union consists of the employees or the workers. Their attitude is very important when it comes to the policies. So basically, the main IR issues which includes about the wages and salaries, the employees' participation, about the training and development, the dismissal, the employees in insecurity, and the social security issues. So they are the main IR issues which is on an international level. It is the IR is mainly governed by both collective agreements and statutory regulations. The local culture and industrial relations, these two structures impacted the entire HR management across the subsidiaries in a multinational corporation. So these variations across industries is across countries in legislative intensity. Second is on the negotiation levels and the approaches they are considering. And third one is the involvement of employee and employer both, because these depends on the countries about the local culture and the domestic environment. So here the IR managers or the global managers understand IR practices globally to ensure compliance and organizational effectiveness. There are certain empirical studies which also shows the multinationals IR practices across nations. One among that is happened in 1983, observed in US firms, was it was recognized that trade unions are less than UK firms, avoided joining employer associations, and more specialized personnel. The US firms have more specialized and experts in their personnel departments at plant level, because there the trade unions are much more dominating, much more prominent. The paid higher wages when offered better fringe benefits than local firms. So there are certain union influence on international IRAs. First is influencing wage levels, where the labor cost is the major part of operational cost of any multinational. The labor cost make the multinational operations cost effective. If the labor cost increases due to trade union demands, then the multinational corporation may suffer from cost non-competitiveness. Whereas on the other side, if the labor cost decreases, then on the trade due to if there is no trade union demand, then multinational firm may have better economic conditions. So second is affecting the multinationals' ability to vary employment levels. Many countries have legislations that limits the ability to management to close the plants, to layoffs, or to standardize the multinational compensation policies, the retirement policies, and so on. The trade unions may use their home country legislations or international standard legislations as a shield to protect the interest of the employees. So the restrictions, well, the multinational corporations' discretion of social dumping is when social dumping is basically shifting from the work from one geographical area to one region to another geographical area or another region. It not only affects the employment level of the country or region, it also reduces the activity of the trade unions. So basically, the union influence is one is wage level, second is it affects the employment level, and third it restrict the social dumping, where they don't move from one place to another place, where shift they don't they restrict on shifting from one place to another place if the unions are very influential. So there are multinational characteristics in neutralizing the power of labor union. Is first is massive financial resource to absorb losses of foreign subsidiaries, where multinationals has no need to depend on rely on one subsidiary to generate overall profit of the organization. It leads to unions bargaining power to naturally weaken this. So here the trade unions stand to lose if they take an inflexible stand. Second is these multinationals have option of shift production units to other countries. So they have several options to set up and operate the production units on various locations. The job security of employees, especially at the shop floor level, at the plant level, may be at stake because they work on different production, different options, different shifts. This may lead to a situation where the trade union compromise on certain employment issues, and to ensure the employee interest at least to the some extent. And here the employees may opt out of trade union membership. The distance between the headquarter and the subsidiary also plays a very important role in neutralizing the power of labor union, because here the trade union often face a problem to have a distance or having a direct and transparent timely communication, and this problem arises due to physical distances, and the problems relating to difference in time zone between the headquarter and subsidiary location. Here the multinational strategize the international IR. Fourth is the conflict or inflexible, uncompromising hostility. Management frustrates demands of unions sometimes. They grants nothing as benefits, and ultimately employees do not vote for this union. So here, when management, frustrates the demands of union, so the members of that particular union, if they, if the trade union cannot be able to negotiate or bargain with the employers, so about the benefits, or if they go on a strike or something like that on the demands, they do not agree on that. So again, the those employees or those members do not vote for that particular trade union. So that also this is a conflict which arises within the trade union, and it neutralizes their part. So there are certain key issues also on an international industrial relations. First is degree of inter-subsidiary production integration. There are central IR more common when subsidiaries are highly integrated. There is transnational sourcing patterns which necessitate coordinated IR policies. For example, the Ford introduced their employee involvement globally as a coordinated IR strategy. A unified IR strategy, the policies supported the global production efficiency. So the Ford has implemented the global IR policies and global IR strategies for their entire subsidiaries to integrate the productions, to integrate the production targets, or there every subsidiary follows the same strategy or same policy. Second is nationality of ownership of the subsidiary. This is also very important issue if we really see from international context. So US firms exercise more centralized control over IR than European firms, whereas US firms emphasize formal controls and tighter reporting systems. US owned subsidiaries show higher centralization in IR decisions. Ethnocentric management style of US firms affects IR practices and the presence of single employer bargaining over employer association. International human resource approach is another key issue, which is ethnocentric approach often leads to IR conflict. Geocentric firms, those are different locations, adapt better host country IR systems because here the IR system or the industrial relations are mainly depends on the location of the subsidiary, where they encourage the participation in local IR activities. The geocentric firms. Uh, and multinational corporations' prior experience in industrial relation also helps in bargaining with the trade unions. The European firms have industrial level bargaining via associations. They have the associations where they do all the collective bargaining and all. Whereas the US firms have firm level based bargaining, and associations play a very important role, a very limited role. US firms develop in-house IR policies rather than industry level practices. They have their own strategies, own policies which they follow, and that depends on their own experiences about the prior cases, or the rules or the strategies made on that only. There are certain subsidiary characteristics which acquire and enjoy more IR autonomy than greenfield ones. Strategic importance and youth of subsidiary from more headquarter interventions. The subsidiaries dependent on HQ, the headquarters. Funding see increased corporate control in IR, and poor performance leads to parent country IR practices being imposed. Other key issue is home product market characteristic. Home product market characteristics involves the firms with domestic markets treat foreign units as extensions. So, for example, European firms with larger international share, they adapt more to the local firms, whereas a single European market led to strategized decisions, but operational on IR decentralization. So there are also the attitude plays, the management attitude plays also very important issue. That's a very important issue in international IR, where the managerial ideology impacts IR behavior significantly. US managers often exhibit union avoidance on to cultural values. There is a decline in global membership, which is linked to economic shifts, manufacturing declines, global competitions, IR decentralization, new governance and legislation, political and economic transitions, and evolving work structures and globalizations. There are certain trends in union membership managerial implications where it is seen in Denmark has the highest union membership in the Western world. France has the lowest, followed by United States. French and US managers have limited experience with unions compared to counterpart of the other countries. And there's a global decline in union membership observed over the past decades. There are certain reasons, which is first is economic factors, then is decentralization and political changes. When we say economic factor is about reduction in public social employment, decreased share of manufacturing jobs, and increase of globalization, increase of global competition. Decentralization of industrial relation at business unit level also one of the reason of decline. There are certain changes which happen, changes in corporate governance and labor laws and regulations. Political changes in the Central and Eastern Europe has seen a very sharp decline of around 36%, which is linked to end of Soviet bloc and evolution of compulsory union membership. So globalizations, new work structures, and workforce changes also contributed to decline. So these are the reasons which is we just discussed, the economic factor, decentralization, changes in corporate governance, changes in labor laws and regulations, political changes, globalization, workforce changes, and the new work structure. So whenever it have any of the reasons, or maybe the few reasons, there is a global decline in overall union membership. Let's see the variations in international IR. First is challenge in cross-national comparisons. Union density data is difficult to compare due to inconsistencies in data collection. It is very challenging of collection of the cross-national data, and to compare that, because here the cross-national variations include the economic factors that relates to the wages or the salaries or the price increases, inflations, employment and all. Then there are certain social factors, which is public support for unions. There are certain political factors which relates to the rules and regulations, strategic behavior, the attitude of the labor, management, and government. So these are few of the variations which happens on cross country, which is very challenging to compare the data among the different subsidiaries or the different organizations located at different locations. Then is industrial dispute and multinational behavior. Multinational corporation subsidiaries experience large and stronger strikes. Reason being, multinationals have less financial pressure to settle strikes quickly. So they can shift production internationally to other location. Sometimes the unions, when they come on the collective bargaining, there is a lower bargaining power with multinationals, because they have options. They can shift the entire, if they shift the entire operational force to some other location, there ultimately the lower bargaining comes when the employees or the unions have no option left. Ultimately they suffer the financial losses of their on their personal front also. So that also results to lower bargaining power. Third is diversity in multinational relation strategies, where there is no universal approach. Strategies varies across multinationals based on the environmental context. That maybe environmental specific context can be on the domestic or the internal environment or the business environment, government rules and regulation strategies, the overall cultural norms and all. So that again depends on the geographical location of the the company. Union influence on multinational strategic choices, which is mentioned in Prahlad and Doge in 1987, where they limit the MNC by raising the wage levels, which affect the competitiveness, restrict flexibility in employment level, and obstructing global integration of operations. So the union concerns regarding the multinational often have serious challenges to trade unions due to their transnational reach, financial strength, and strategical flexibility. So these key concerns are mainly revolves around the financial resources, the alternative sources of supply, mobility of the entire operational facilities or the production facilities, the remote decision-making structures, diverse product lines and expertise are there, investment strikes, and misinformation and opaqueness. These are the few concerns which are concern of the unions when it comes to the multinational, because ultimately they don't have a financial pressure with them. They have experts with them. They have they can shift their entire operation of the production facilities. They make that decisions remotely. They have sometimes the universal IR strategies, and they follow that. The entire subsidiaries follows that. So all these concerns makes and comes on a union on a low bargaining power with the multinationals. So here the trade unions have adopted three prolonged strategies. First is international trade secretariat. Second is lobbying of restrictive national legislation. And third is regulation of international organization. So these are few of the responses where the MNCs they adopt these strategies which counteract the power of MNC, because they, by the time they have experience or that the MNCs, with MNCs, they have low bargaining power, so they strategize. They have international trade secretariats where it is a very formal structure, and there is also a lobby of restrictive national on a national geography, on a domestic level. Then there are regulation, and there are certain rules and regulation which they follow the on an international with the international organizations. So unions responses to MNC influence when it is ITS, so it is transnational bargaining. Their main objective is transnational bargaining with the company-wide union management decisions, and there are 15 ITS linked national unions across trades and industries. Second is regulation of international organization, where there is a lobby. There is successful lobbying, that is ILO, International Labour Organization, OECD, UNCTAD, and EU. So ILO is the Code of Conduct in 1977, which promotes principles like freedom of association, collective bargaining, and non-discrimination. Whereas OECD guidelines is voluntary, but it is more influential. It covers the transparency, employment, taxation, and all these issues. Whereas the EU is enforced binding laws. Trade unions are pushed for greater corporate transparency here. The lobbying for restrictive national legislation is to prevent the job offshoring and deindustrialization. So there are certain, objectives which these, union response to these strategies. So let's see what are the international employer associations and their roles. UNICE and IOE, BIAC, and EU are the few international employers associations. Their first rule is lobbying on behalf of business and capital, where they act as business advocates for the transnational forums. UNICE is consulted by EU on policy matters. Business lobbies are there, where they discuss and make the legislation on tax, the environment, etc. And the rule 2 is providing information to members. Here, they fill the gap which is left by limited staff by the institutions like European Commissions. They enable the informed decision making by nationals and corporate members. The rule 3 is monitoring and developing international guidelines. So this is a main objective of International Employer Association. The main role is to collaborate in drafting voluntary frameworks where they promote the soft regulation and dialogue patterns between the labor and the business. There is no binding enforcement, and it relies on voluntary adherence. So these are the three main roles where the International Employer Association follows, which includes the UNICE, BIAC, IOE, and AMCHA EU, which is American Chamber of Commerce, to the EU. So these are all the employer associations follow these three. They do the three roles. International Employer Association, when we talk from an employer's perspective, the influence and limitations relates that they have a successful lobbying, They maintain the voice of international governance. They shape the legislative proposals in taxation, trainings, environment, and all. But there are certain limitations also where these national associations retain primary influence in employment relations. The businesses prefer national governance due to higher control and flexibility. Transnational institutions like EU and social dialogue remain largely consultative. They are mainly on the consultation part, where the employers support economic integration but uphold broader regulatory authorities and supranational level. Let's see from IR practices in different geographies and the different countries. First is IR practices in Australia. Here the legal framework is mainly of freedom of association, and it is based on workplace regulations and other legislative act, amendment act, that is in 1996, which is also known as WAR. There is a voluntary union membership. There is anti-disc protections for unions, status. There is in Australia there is a lower threshold of union registration from 100 to 50 members. It limits to industrial action. Right to strike and lockout is allowed only to specific context, and strike pay is prohibited. That is the main framework. Here, the Employer Association ACCI, that is Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Australian Chamber of Manufacturers, Metal Trade Industry Associations of Australia, National Farmers Freedom, Masters Builder Australia, all these influence wage negotiations, policy advocacy and industrial relations. The trade unions are ACTU, that is National Federation, that is Australian Council of Trade Union, 50 unions affiliated to ACTU, and their main role is to represent the workers of Australian workforce, agreements, that is AWAs, and negotiate certified agreements, mostly at enterprise level, at the organization level. The wage negotiation structure shift from centralized to decentralized bargaining post 1987. The current structure is 50% of negotiation is done on the state and territory level, 50% on federal level, and hybrid system or regional autonomy or federal oversight. The dispute resolution is a traditionally based on compulsory conciliation and arbitration, but the current mechanism is mostly voluntary and consultative as on today also. The wage-related issues, there is no single national wage, multiple wage scale. There is no single minimum wage, there is multiple wage scale, depends on the job role, depends on the industry, the sector, so there is a multiple wage scales. Then let's see what are the IR practices in Austria. The legal framework at Austria is again freedom of association and assembly, equality before law, freedom of occupation and establishment, and prohibition of forced labor. Statutory chambers are there for both employers and employees. Employee representation at work council is mandatory in firms with 5+ eligible employees. Scale employees with employee count. Represent all employees regardless of union status. Hold consultative and co-determination rights. Whereas the Employers Association is WKO, that is Wristcraft Scammer Australia. Australian Federal Economic Chamber, there are 6 divisions which includes industry, commerce, crafts, finance, transport, tourism. Their main roles is collective bargaining, policy consultation, vocational training, and leadership. The trade unions, the trade union central bodies OGP, that is Ostriker Gewerker Kraftsbund. It includes 14 individual unions. They are not legal entities. Negotiations handled by unions are signed by OGB. Notable affiliates are private sector employees union and local employees union. The construction and timber trade union, that is GDH, they have the highest coverage due to expansion of collective agreement systems. The dispute resolution, the dispute resolve on through the arbitration, which is compulsory in specific cases. Um, Industrial tribunals include the 3 to 5 judges with bipartite representation. The wage regulation and employee benefit, there is no standard minimum wages. Minimum wages are determined by a collective agreements across the sectors. Sickness pay, wage earners, 100% pay for 4 to 10 weeks, salaried pay for 6 to 12 weeks, then 50% for 4 weeks. So it reflects the strength of collective bargaining and promotes the job security overall. Let's see what are the IR practices in Canada. The legal framework of the Canada is based on CLC, that is Canadian Labour Code. It guaranteed the freedom of association, right to form, join trade unions and employer organization, strikes and lockouts prohibited during collective agreement period. Any of the party may initiate bargaining within 3 months of agreement expiry. Employee representation in Canada, there is no statutory work council system. Health and safety committees required in firm with 20 plus employees, and committees include employer and employee representatives, which are they are mainly focused on occupational safety. The employer associations are business council of national issues, which represents the large corporations, the big corporations, whereas the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the CCC, represents both large and small businesses. Canadian Free Federation of Indian Independent Business, that is CFIB, focus on SMEs. Roles include policy advocacy, guidance on IR, and lobbying. The trade unions, central body, Canadian Labour Congress, represent 2.3 million workers. Most provincial unions are CLC affiliates. National coordination plus local autonomy. There is a strong union influence in public sector, education, and certain private sector. The union density varies by provinces. That depends on the locations, that depends on the areas. The wage negotiation is mainly on enterprise level, where the collective bargaining, whereas a collective bargaining is limited. And it is of wide, the industry is mainly education and healthcare. There is wide sector is on education and healthcare. The legal structure supports autonomous organizations between unions and employers. The dispute resolution, because when we are talking about our industrial relation, then dispute resolution is very important, where conciliation and arbitrations are mandatory before any strike or lockout. Strike action is legal only after conciliation process is complete in Canada. Federal mediation and conciliation services are provided. The mediation process, conciliation and preventive mediation, the grievance mediation. So there is a central services, the conciliation services provided. Either it can be on conciliation or mediations. Mediation can be whether it is preventive or it is grievance. So there they are very focused on the mediation, because that also leads to the reduce on the strike level, or the strikes happen. The wage related issues, there is minimum wages which is set as per the provinces or the territories. There is no statutory employer education obligation for sick pays. Sickness benefits are offered by public employment insurance and private insurance if it is provided. So, social security is very important. Here, the social security is on a very focused area. Profit sharing of employee participation, that is PEPPER, that is encourage various plans which include CPSPs, that is cost profit sharing plans, where the direct cash bonuses are distributed to the employees. Deferred profit sharing plans, that is DPSPs, that is tax deferred on the employer or employee contribution. Employee profit sharing plans where there is no contribution limit but there is flexible participation. Whoever wants to participate, they participate. Whereas these profit sharing is on and employee participation is largely seen at higher practices in Canada. Whereas in the France, the legal framework is enshrined by the French constitutions. That is right to employment, freedom of association, on discrimination. There should not be any discrimination on opinions, on beliefs, or religion. Collective agreements define employment terms and protections. Trade unions and employers association play a very important role in IR. The Employers Association, that is MEDEF, largest and most influential. 80%, 80 plus sectors and 160 plus local associations are included in that. UIMM is another employer association which represents the metalworking and mining industries. CGPME is focused mainly on SMEs, the small manufacturing enterprises. The main roles are bargaining, lobbying, and advisory to the member firms. The trade unions here represent are basically the representative confederations. CGT, CGTFO, CFDA, CFE, CGC, CFTC. There are certain legal rights which are include, that is collective bargaining, establishing union sections, and representation in councils and tribunals. In the France, the level of wage negotiation is multi-tiered. It depends on the national, the sector, then the region, and even the company level is taken into consideration. Only representative unions can sign agreements. Government can extend agreements to cover entire sectors, including non-union workers also. In France, the mediation and the conciliations is the conciliation is mandatory before proceeding ruling. If it is unresolved, tribunal gives a formal decision. But before that, mediation and the conciliation is mandate. Wage-related issues in France enforces a statutory minimum wages, which is called SMIC. It adjusted annually or for inflation and purchasing power. The sick pays for the employers pay first 3 days of defense and absence, and after that, state benefits apply under eligibility criteria. Now, the employer participation is mandatory, where we have seen in Canada, then to some extent the profit sharing, there are certain plans in employer participation in profit sharing, but in certain plan it is like profit sharing plan, it is there is no contribution limit, but it is flexible participation, where employee participation plan in profit, that is PEPPR, where it is mandatory profit sharing for the companies with more than 50 employees. So it means wherever in any company there is more than 50 employees, it is mandatory in France to share the profits with the employees. Industrial relations in Germany. The German constitution, it is the framework is German as constitution, which regulates, which mandate the freedom of association, right of collective bargaining, no explicit statutory right to strike, but they're protected by a constitutional interpretation and case laws. The labor law is decentralized and sector specific. There is statutory minimum wages, which is introduced in 2015. The employee employment in Germany is governed by Work Constitution Act. Work councils can be formed in company with more than 5 employees, voting other eligible employees. Employee representation is through informal rights. It means that they are consulted and properly informed, well informed. Participation rights is because it mainly focused on rights also. So participation rights is to make expressions and express the opinions. Co-determination right is work council consent needed to discuss decisions, that is either on hours or discipline. For example, supervisory board representation is mandatory in companies with more than 500 or 2000. So employees under Miss Bentumung, that is co-determination. So the employee involvement is very much in IR when it context of IR in Germany, where they have certain rights. They are governed by Work Institution Act. There is a statutory laws are there. The Employers Association is regulated by BDA, that is Confederation of German Employees Associations. The umbrella of 65 plus employer federation is there. It covers 1000 employer associations. So nearly 1000 employer associations are there. The main role of employer association, the BDA, is to influence national labor social policy, coordinate employer strategies in collective bargaining. The trade unions in Germany are very industry specific and typically centralized. So there is Dutcher Gewerkschaftsbund, that is DGB. This is a main federation. Which includes 12 sector council unions. For example, IG Metal, DI. There are certain 12 sectors. Unions are well resourced and influential in policy and wage bargaining. In Germany, the level of wage negotiation is conducted between trade union, that is industry specific, and the employers associations or individual firms, which is mainly on sectoral level. The company level agreements also exist in some context. The mediation, conciliation, and arbitration. Whenever there is any dispute in the Germany, it is resolved via any of these ways. The negotiation and conciliation or through formal arbitration mechanisms are available. Labor courts are there. If there is any employment, in any case of employment dispute, their main emphasis on social partnerships. Their emphasis on how we can reduce the strikes. That can be done mainly and focusedly on through mediation or conciliation. Wage-related issues are in Germany when it was because in 2015 there was Minimum Wages Act, came into action. So, as seen in first, column, first row, the statutory minimum wage introduced in 2015. So pre-2015, there was no statutory wages, which is relied to collective agreement. But after post-2015, when the national minimum wage was introduced and regulated, minimum wage commissions, where the wage agreements also cover bonuses, leaves, and the working hours. So let's see further industrial relations in Japan. The legal framework in Japanese has constitution guarantees against freedom of association, right to collective bargaining, right to act collectively. Trade union laws defines trade unions, prohibits unfair labor practices, refusal to bargain, Labor relation adjustment laws provide procedure for dispute resolution via conciliation, mediation, and act. That was a broad legal framework. But when we get inside on the employee involvement, there is a trade union law protects members from discrimination, denial of bargaining rights. There are employee representation mainly through enterprise. There are no statutory requirement for work councils. They emphasize on direct management union dialogues within the enterprises. In Japan, the Employer Association, that is Japanese Federation of Employers Association, represent industry, regional employer bodies, advocates in labor policy and wage negotiations. It coordinates cross-sector employer strategies. Trade unions in Japan is structured on enterprise base. That is a company specific unions. The major confederation is Rengo, that is the largest. 60% of unionized workers are registered. It is politically moderate, whereas the Zinneran has 7% membership, more militant and left leaning. Overall union density declining due to economic or demographic shifts in general. Level of wage negotiation is mainly on enterprise level. Bargaining is mainly on that. And spring offensive, that is, they call it Shonto. Annual union uh, led wage campaigns. They set the industry benchmark. There is a certain pattern standards. There are certain strategies which they follow. Influences public sectors, more SMEs. They are more concerned on SMEs and non-unionized firms. So in Japan, it is mainly governed by labor the relations adjustment law. They emphasize on employers' voluntary settlement through conciliation, mediation, and then in case arbitration. Let's see what is the industrial relations overview on United States. Union recognition is secret ballot, done through secret ballot. Unionization is voluntary. Industry-wide unions are AFSCME, UAE, USWA, whereas the professional sector unions, that is AFP, ALP, AFM. The overtime pay here is 1.5 into regular pay for work over 40 hours per week. So this is very important when it comes to the overtime pay, because it is almost the highest of entire countries. So wage negotiation is enterprise firm level, and it occurs locally between locals and individual employees. In US, the federal and state have plus state have minimum wages. If state has higher permitted, then it goes along with that, the minimum wages of state. Then the employee involvement, there is in US there is no internal non-union bodies are allowed. The dispute settle is done by FMCS and voluntary state services. Sick pay is not guaranteed federally. Pepper is, that is profit sharing of is ESOPs, that is employee sharing of profits, promoted with tax benefits. The legal framework is the in US is mainly on at will doctrine. So whatever you want on maybe in the favor of the federal labor law follows. Let's see what is the industrial relations in India. It is governed over 100 laws. When we talk about IR in India, that is central and state level. The key reforms were recommended by the Second National Commission on Labor, that is 2002. There is a simplification of labor law, simple negotiations, union were made. Grievance redressal committee was made for companies with 20 plus workers. Job productions were informal and unorganized sector were formed, and there was no contract labor in core production. Then there is another act, that is Industrial Dispute Act 1947, which mandates the Works Committee for employees with 100 plus workers, and joint councils and joint management councils were formed to promote the bipartite dialogues. The major bodies in India are IAIOE, that is All India Organization of Employers, and EFI, that is Employers Federation of India. It is also registered as trade union. When we say trade unions, so major trade unions are AITUC, INTUC, HMS, and UTUC. The multiplicity of unions creates fragmented representation and sometimes the conflicts. The political affiliations often influence union functioning. The wage negotiations is mainly occur on plant level or maybe industry level or at national level, in case if the company is that big, but the negotiations may occur if it is a small company, that it may occur at a plant level only. So Industrial Dispute Act provides mechanism for conciliation, voluntary arbitration and adjunction by the labor courts and tribunal courts are there. So the focus is on tripartite resolution with state playing a very important role. So in India, the conflict resolution is on tripartite partite resolution. So overall, we have covered the industrial relations in the India, US, Japan, Germany, France, Canada, Austria, and Australia. So all these countries have different legal framework, but almost when we come on an overview, it is almost same. So let's see what are the new trends and what is the industry 4.40, because there are this is the this is a 4.0 industry 4.0 is going on, where it is more concerned more when the organizations are prepare for the digitizations or maybe the digital transformation. So there, the fourth industrial revolution is going on. The COVID-19 crisis has been destructive. It was a phase when the disruption happens and the rapid changes takes place when it concerns with the digitization. The changes in all aspects of work is inevitable today with innovative business model, workspace designs, new technologies, AR, VR, AI, and IoTs. The composition of workforce itself with a mix of human and intelligent machines. So Industry 4.0 is very destructive, phase, and the organization is more inclined towards the digitization and the mix of AI and human machines. The workspace of the future will be very different. This is one of the very important part of workforce, which will provide employees with choice of working anytime from anywhere. So we are seeing as on today also the hybrid culture or work from home culture, but in the gig economy, people are known to be as crowdsource employees, freelancers who generally do work through internet, or maybe whenever they get the work, they do that particular work on the assignment basis. Prefer to be self-employed. We are seeing very self-entrepreneurs who are digitally working towards, and we will be seeing more of part-timers and temporary kind of work. So according to NASCOM, while nearly half of the Indian industry employs gig workers, at present the number would increase in coming years, because with the digitization, with the increase in digitization, and the workspace are also digitally seen very well as on today also in most of the organizations. But there are major challenges for HR leaders, where the easy access and the reach of information almost instant has reduced time and nothingness. We are able to achieve more faster, better with few people. Technology can only help organizations succeed if HR shift their ways of working to be more eligible and keep the pace of change. HR need to adopt more flexible and holistically approach. It is not only they are not restricted only to HR function. They need to work very holistically if they really want to work if they to work along with a change which is happening in industry 4.0. So with the digital transformation of the work, HR need to think more of like designers and architects experimenting and testing what are the new ways of doing, how the work can be working better with the new digital technologies and with the new expert workforce. So future focused organization have started to emphasize on the diversity of personality, emotional intelligence, lived experiences, risk appetites, neurodiversity, imagination, and adaptability. So, a lot of work is have already the organizations are working on emotional intelligence, a lot of development and training, and the are the people, the employees are getting training for that. They are even working on the diversity of DEI as well, which we can see further how the workplace benefits of the workplace balances is very important as on, and the organizations are focusing and emphasizing on that. Neurodiversity is very important part of the employee. You know, if they are emphasizing on that. So how the organizations are more focused on creativity and diversity and the adaptability, which is by fostering which helps in fostering the organization culture and learning culture of an organization. So building the organizational capability is mainly trends of globalization, which is happening globally, market liberalization, deregulation, and technical evolution, which restructure the global markets and challenge the traditional pathways or the approaches on gaining the competitive advantage. This term, the organizational capability, was adopted by Ulrich and Blake, who brought together perspectives from the field of management of change, the organizational design and leadership, and argued that organizational capability was about competing from inside out. So it was more concern on the inside out approach within an organization. So organization capabilities are mainly focused on the ability of the firms, their own internal processes and the management practices. That is to meet the customer needs, and second, to direct both skills and efforts of the employees towards achieving the goals which is aligned with their own personal goals also. And with their own personal growth and keeping in this in view, the management of people are developing the organizational capabilities, which includes how organization implement policies and procedures, what are the best ways to implementation, and these means are centered around economic and financial capabilities, strategic and marketing capabilities, along with the technological capabilities. So economic, strategic, marketing, financial, and technological capabilities combinedly makes the organizational capability. So it develops, there is a certain model which is developed by Montaglieri in 2002. It is a model of process skills needed to provide such development of capabilities. There are five key resources. First is the main is leadership, where the leaders, through the expression and subsequent articulation of strategic event, organization culture, which is very important, where they can mobilize a supportive routine which is already embedded, which is already there in their culture. Information technology, does not in sense of technical investments, but more in the ways that these investments are leveraged in through unique resources. Long-term view, where they develop and nurture the commitment. Social network through the cultivation of strong relationship within the stakeholders. So the mantra of organizational capability is supported by developments in both the use of technological and marketing capabilities, and in some forms again we dominate of activity internal HR professionals. So this is one part which is very important for industry 4.0. So streamlining the HR functions is also HR service centers, which are also the shared services. This is a centralization and administration of HR tasks. This is another term where they centralize the back office and separate the strategic HR functions. The functionality of the shared services of the HR service centers are centrally here for administration, local HR for tailored advice, and policy aligned with business needs. The decision making on the shared service centers are, while administration is centralized, decision remains decentralized. Their that this HR service centers, their relevance in IHRM is where the HR function. It's very important. It drives to alignment. They aligned with where the HR functions are working internationally and influencing centralization and localization dynamics. So skill implications here, the HR professionals need to be very strategic in service roles, as well as demanding new skills and competencies. Technology, we are into the technological era, so it does not drive the change to the shared services. The drivers for main changes to include the reduce the cost, improve the quality improvement, and the broader organization change, not just technology. It's not only about technological change, but also the entire organization change, which derives towards the technology and along with the alignment of the human resources. Escalation of issues at the HR service centers are cross-national issues, more likely to escalate on international HR experts. They are the experts who really look after that. The control system is monitoring the HR professional performance as responses. By late 1980s, the organization moved away from country by country. And there was this is a historical context on HR service center. So there, during that time, it is not today also, but now the things are more integrated, and because then it was on a line of globally integration, but now most of the things are integrated. But there is a challenges in fully integration because the diversity in employment laws and strong national employment practices hinders the total alignment. Outsourcing and insourcing HR is all about shared services, local and central. Then it enables the cost saving, standardization, mass customization, technology. They are more work like as facilitator, not drivers. It reduces the cost, improves the quality. It's not about only technology. The complex issues goes to the international HR in the center of excellence, and COEs are there in most of the organizations, and global HR directors are added to strategic business partners. So mechanism of integration is the fifth role of IHRM, which manages the international talent. Global talent management goes beyond international assignment. Local versus global strategies taken into consideration. Employee brand and EVP is one of the another mechanism of integration. Talent pipeline, the talent of the multinational, identifying the top talent and aligning the capability is again mechanism of integration, challenging the talent retention and understanding the employee needs, aligning the HR policies is also one of the mechanism. Impact of HR policies, which includes the recruitment, development, compensation, and all. Technology's role plays a very important role, which enables sharing, has real integration, depends on content, relationship, and mutual business needs. So the purpose of global network is not only to provide the forum to encourage more innovation, but also to create a situation where membership of the network provides advantages for better quality implementation. Then is getting the stakeholders and of course forcing the business agendas in forums outside the networks. So overall, we have seen management through global network, which builds the HR capability across international operations, essential due to ongoing organizational changes. We have see the key point relied on conversations in person, group interactions, and shared global and HR insights. Actively establish informal HR networks to support learning and collaboration. Having networks in place enables quicker response, higher quality HR services, and stronger business alignment. Networks are especially effective in decentralized international human resource management models. So, e-enablement is equally important where the HR practices are increasingly web-enabled. Technology works as an enabler. Benefits of EHR is more need of direct HR intervention. EHR examples are online recruitment, performance appraisals, pay changes, employee aspirations, and all. This is more shift towards the self-service, and strategy collaboration has increases. So cultural change there is a shift in the cultural change also in the cross-border integration as increases. Global shared services has also extended. So the top trends of HRM is diversity and inclusion, hybrid work, work from home, critical thinking, soft skills, digital skills, employee wellness, artificial intelligence and machine learning, creative recruitment and LMS, virtual realities and augmented realities, gig economy, fluid task management. So overall, we have learned about the industrial relations, subsidiaries, strong industrial relations in different countries, trends in international human resource management, which is categorized in organizational capability and mechanism of integration. And we have seen the four type of integration, that is operational, intellectual, and social. So that's all for these units, and thank you so much. Namaste.